What exactly is a nation? Have you actually ever stopped to think about that? If we took a quick poll right now, you'd probably mention things like patriotism, national flags, maybe those massive Republic Day parades with all their power and diversity. Or maybe you'd think about the people who sacrifice everything for their country. But when we strip away the flags and the parades, what is it really? It's surprisingly difficult to pin down a precise definition. But as we're about to see, the answer holds the key to modern history. Take a look at this memorial. It was constructed in fond memory of Lance Nayak Balbir Singh, who died while building defenses at a fort. This really anchors the incredible emotional weight of nationalism. People are literally willing to sacrifice their very lives for this concept. It inspires intense loyalties. But as history shows us over and over again, it also inspires deep hatreds. So before we can truly understand why people die for a nation, we have to dissect the theory behind what a nation actually is. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating chapter on political theory to uncover the mechanics of nationalism. We're going to look way beyond the surface-level assumptions and assess the claims, the aspirations, and the very anatomy of a nation. Here is our roadmap for This Explainer. 1. The power of nationalism. 2. What makes a nation? 3. Political versus cultural identity. 4. National self-determination. And finally, 5. A case study on Basque nationalism. Let's start with Section 1, the power of nationalism and how it's shaping the modern world. Nationalism is, without a doubt, a double-edged sword. On one side, it acts as a massive uniting force. Think of the 19th century European unifications, where small, fractured kingdoms came together to form the larger nation-states of Germany and Italy. It's also been the driving force liberating colonies across Asia and Africa from oppressive foreign rule. But on the flip side, it is equally a dividing force. Nationalism was the primary spark in the violent breakup of massive global empires, the Austro-Hungarian, the Russian, the British, and even today it continues to inspire separatist movements and border conflicts that constantly threaten to divide existing states. Moving on to Section 2, what makes a nation? The 4 building blocks. Defining a nation can actually be pretty confusing, mainly because there's no single common set of physical characteristics, like descent, language, or religion that exists in all nations. A nation isn't a physical thing you can go out and touch, like a river or a mountain. Rather, it is to a great extent an imagined community. It's held together by collective beliefs, aspirations, and imaginations. You're never going to meet most of your fellow nationals, yet the nation exists simply because you imagine yourselves connected. This imagined community is based on 4 core assumptions that people make about the collective whole they identify with. Let's break down these 4 building blocks: shared beliefs, history, territory, and shared political ideals. First up, shared beliefs. A nation only exists when its members actively believe they belong together. It's exactly like a sports team. A team is a set of people who play together, but more importantly, they conceive of themselves as a unified group. If they suddenly stopped believing they were a team, they'd just be a bunch of random individuals running around on a field. A nation is exactly the same. Its whole existence relies entirely on a collective vision for the future. Second, nations stretch deep into the past. People who see themselves as a nation embody a strong sense of continuing historical identity. They draw on collective memories, legends, and historical records. For example, nationalists in India invoked its ancient civilization to claim a continuing history. Jawaharlal Nehru actually observed this brilliantly in the discovery of India. He noted that despite infinite variety among the people, there was a tremendous impressive oneness that just held them all together through the ages. The third block is territory. Sharing a common past and living together on a specific piece of land gives people a collective identity. This is exactly why nations speak of a homeland, a motherland, or a promised land. The territory holds a very special significance. But importantly, this is also a major cause of global conflict. Why? Because you'll often have more than one group of people laying claim to the exact same territory. Finally, we have the 4th building block, shared political ideals. This is what truly distinguishes a group from a nation. It's the shared vision of the kind of state they want to build together, affirming values like democracy, secularism, and mutual obligations to fellow citizens. In fact, acknowledging this framework of mutual obligations, recognizing the rights of each other, is quite often the strongest test of loyalty to any nation. All right, Section 3, political versus cultural identity and how democracies bind themselves. Let's look at 2 totally different ways a society defines who belongs to this imagined community.
On the left, we have cultural identity. Some folks believe a shared political vision isn't quite enough, so they seek to bind a nation through a single, common religion, language, or descent. On the right, we have political identity, where the nation is bound entirely by shared constitutional values and political ideals, completely regardless of a person's cultural background.
The crucial takeaway here is that democracies almost always prefer political identity over cultural identity. And here is why. Forging an identity based on a single culture or religion carries some serious risks. For starters, all major religions are internally incredibly diverse. Ignoring that can create a highly authoritarian and oppressive society. Second, imposing one language or religion inherently excludes minority groups. It restricts religious liberty and puts non-native speakers at a massive disadvantage. Ultimately, it limits the democratic ideal we cherish the most, equal treatment for all.
Next up, Section 4, National Self-Determination and the Demand for Independence. Back in the 19th century in Europe, a very specific notion gained massive acceptability: one culture, one state. The idea was simple. Every culturally distinct group should have its own separate nation-state. This concept was heavily relied upon when they were reordering global boundaries after World War I, specifically through the Treaty of Versailles, which established a whole bunch of small, newly independent states. But there was a truly devastating price to that one culture, one state ideal. Millions of people. It proved virtually impossible to draw borders that neatly contained only one ethnic community. The attempt to do so led to massive displacement. Generations were violently expelled from their ancestral homes, and many others became victims of terrible communal violence. The human cost of trying to perfectly align culture with state boundaries was just staggering.
Let's bring this into the real world with Section 5, a case study on Basque nationalism.
To paint a picture for you, the Basque region is a hilly, very prosperous area inside the Spanish Federation. The terrain makes it geographically distinct. Even more uniquely, they have a language that does not resemble Spanish at all, though today only about 1/3 of the population there actually understands it. Despite currently being recognized by the Spanish government as an autonomous region, leaders of the Basque nationalist movement demand a completely separate, independent country based on those distinct cultural markers. If we look at their historical timeline, we can see exactly where the strife comes from. Going all the way back to Roman days, the Basque region maintained its own unique justice and administrative systems. They never surrendered their autonomy. But then, in the late 19th century, Spanish rulers tried to abolish these unique arrangements. And in the 20th century, the Spanish dictator Franco drastically cut their autonomy, even going so far as to ban the use of the Basque language in public places and inside homes. That severe suppression threw absolute gasoline on the modern nationalist movement.
Which brings us to today. Objectively speaking, those repressive measures have been withdrawn, and autonomy exists once again. However, the leaders of the Basque movement remain highly suspicious of the motives of the Spanish government. They are extremely fearful of the entry of outsiders into their region and continue pushing for full separation. Opponents of the movement, on the other hand, argue that the separatists are simply trying to score political points on an issue that has already been resolved by the current autonomy. So, I want to leave you with these questions straight from our source material today. Based on everything we've unpacked, the shared beliefs, the history, the push for political versus cultural identity, do you think Basque nationalists are justified in demanding a separate nation? Ultimately, is Basque a nation? I really want you to evaluate what you've learned today and ask yourself how this framework applies not just to Spain, but to regions all around the globe. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.